Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of council of April 17th. It being 7:01, I'll call the meeting to order. We have the land acknowledgement and any concerns or conflicts, council? If not, any amendments or to the changes to the agenda? Not a motion to adopt as presented and seconded. All in favor of adoption? Carried. Without further ado, we can jump then to item 5.1, which is the Inlet Avenue Road improvement funding. And we have a staff report without Mr. Dillon, I guess, or Mr. Yates, who's going to speak to this.
I'll be speaking to this, Your Worship. The report, there's a verbal report with I'm giving today. It's just we applied for the funding 2 years ago. And during the project, we experienced costs from archaeology as well as the inflation that occurs over that 2-year period with the delays in the award of the grant and the time it takes to tender. So we're seeking the additional funding in order to pay the invoices that are accrued on the project and complete the remaining works that would happen this spring. So that's the street lighting and the pavement marking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you want to start, Councillor Tough, please?
Thank you. Just a quick one. Recognizing that the other two options that are here are showing different funding source options. I guess I'm just looking for a little more implications on using $530,000 of prior year's surplus for this. Is there something that we would normally be spending the money on that we're not going to be able to do if we do this, or is it just not going into reserves? Thank you.
Yeah. Very good question. Mr. Douglas, I think.
Yes, there was a couple of funding sources available to us. We are expecting to see a bit of a surplus this year. And we have about 1.5 million in there from previous years. So we'll have more than enough to cover this additional expenditure.
Right, but I don't think that's quite the question. The question is, what's the impact? Like, if we didn't have to take the money from here, that's about a 4% increase in taxes or potential to reduce the taxes.
Well, my recommendations would have been from either the Growing Communities Reserve or prior year surplus. So, you know, there'd be no intention of taxing the public more for this.
No, but okay, Councillor Toth, I'll let you carry on with.
Thank you. I guess knowing how much there was sitting available in prior year's surplus helps. It's not that, like, taking this $530,000 from prior year's surplus is not taking it away from something else that we might be better spending that money on. It's just coming out of a surplus account is what I think
Right.
I'm understanding here.
I agree with you, but that's, if we hadn't taxed for it previously, we wouldn't have that surplus. What is coming from taxpayers. Councillor Inkster, please.
Thank you. I guess that's always a question, what could have been done instead, but when it's a surplus, it's non-designated, so it wouldn't have been or anything designated. It's within our original budget, which then comes to the end in a surplus. Two questions though. What is left then in our surplus from this year? And if we have such a large surplus, and if we did do a surplus again this year, are we overtaxing? Thanks.
Right.
The complete number isn't known yet. We're just finalizing the year-end process. But we're expecting it to, you know, be more than this amount. The most of that was due to the interest differential for the last year. This is something that's not going to continue forever. So it's not as if we overtaxed, but you know, relying on interest, you know, just is to cover, you know, normal everyday expenses, is something that, you have to watch.
Follow up.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Inkster?
Interesting. I mean, we've heard of some products that have created some interest for us. And I'm assuming the end of our year is at March 31st, was it? Is it
December 31st.
December 31st?
Yeah.
So, sorry, I was thinking of business. I was confusing the two. So that means if the interest is an amount collected above and beyond what we thought, and we've since collected interest since then to now, and there is a prediction of no lowering of interest rates in the US, the assumption that is, although we don't work on assumptions, that we will create an interest surplus next year because we're already 1/3 through the year and there's no change in interest rates seen on the horizon. So I'm assuming if the investments are of the same amount and have not been drawn down, that the interest collected will be of a similar amount next year. Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right, but
Yeah.
we've also budgeted more because we recognize the higher rates of interest, so. Anyways, we'll stay with this. When it's my turn, we'll come back to the underlying, how did we get here? But Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes,
Please.
thank you. I was just wondering, are there other properties that pay the frontage costs as well? Why is it listed here only TELUS and the Legion? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So through your worship, so when a property triggers a development permit, they must do the frontage. Normally, they would do that on their own. They would construct their own frontage, but in this case, staff anticipating that there would be multiple projects happening, we applied proactively for the grant, which we got in 2022, and it made sense to do the project as one big project. So rather than them having piecemeal frontages that were reconstructed, we did as one project to reduce the amount of interruption to the businesses in the area and to have some synergies with the project. So we're able to use the stormwater from the TELUS site, for
Right.
example, to feed our trees.
But
So
Mr. Dillon, I think the question really is, why just the two? Because of the only two that are under development.
correct.
So if somebody is there a latecomer possibility for any of this? If somebody redevelops another property, would they contribute to this down the road?
No, they wouldn't, but potentially on Periwinkle roads, there might be some there for
Right.
water servicing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Councillor Shepherd.
To the chair, my question is about these projects where I realize, we're awarding 2 years after, and there's been considerable inflation during that period. So we have this excess cost. But my question is, how many projects are in this, or are we going to see this kind of excess spending? Wakefield Road, the pump station, same sort of scenario. So I'm just wondering, we do see quarterly reports from engineering on projects as they're ongoing. But is there any way to identify where engineering or finance know where these excess expenditures are going to be required? Thanks.
Who wants to take that, Mr. Dillon?
Thank you again for the question, through your worship. So the question was about how many other projects out there. So prior to the pandemic, there was a number of grants that we applied for with short timelines. And it was during a period of actually deflation. So we did a bunch of cost estimates at that time. And so this was actually the last of those projects we applied for grant funding for during that time period. The subsequent ones, we're accounting for inflation now. We know the full scale of archaeology costs. So there shouldn't be more coming. This was kind of the last of the bunch that we'd applied during that period. We did attempt to get more money out of the grant funder, but they said there was only that much available. And initially we were rejected, but they approved it almost a year after. So there's no opportunity for us to go back to the grant funder and seek more funding.
I think we understand that, Mr. Dillon, but the question is how many projects are we in the same boat? We got the Wakefield Lift Station, which we've had a report a couple of months ago, I guess.
Yeah.
But are there
Yeah.
other major projects in process? And
Yes.
maybe before you answer, if I may, the concern I have is we've gone ahead and committed to paying people beyond our envelope. You know, we as council provided a funding envelope and we spent more money than that. So we don't have much of a choice unless we don't want to pay our bills. But how do we avoid this going forward?
Thank you again for the question. So we've, definitely, there was, a lapse in process and we're, looking, we're closely monitoring every project. So we've changed, you know, the way that, change orders come forward. And so we're addressing that now. There's no other projects out there that I'm aware of, that we are in this situation on. Wakefield seems to be like on budget based on the numbers I've gotten, and I get those updated to me recently. So, so yes, I'm acknowledging that there was a lapse in process on this, and we're looking at, we've improved our processes since, and with we don't want to have to come to council after the fact. Thank you.
Councilor Shepherd.
Yeah, I know. I know that staff did a great job of trying to find grants for the work. Absolutely. And it's a huge time differential in terms of estimating the project and awarding. So, you know, again, my question, I'm wondering if we should be asking for, let's say if there's 10 large capital projects that are ongoing right now, should we ask for a quick update from engineering at another council of the whole? Where are we at financially in these projects, just to make sure that there's no significant surprises coming?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah. I agree.
We could certainly provide that information.
Yeah. Okay, because I want to just observe on page 7, council, the original, and I'm seeking clarification from perhaps Mr. Douglas. If you look at the first 3 lines, I think that was the original capital, or the original project cost. If you add those together. Page 7, because we had the 75% grant, our matching contribution, and we presumably negotiated with TELUS for an amount. So if you add those up, it comes to 1.6 million.
Mhm.
And now we're at 2.4.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. And now we're at 2.4. So we've gotten $800,000, 50% over budget. And it didn't come back to council. I think that's a real problem for me. So I want to know the process, not necessarily today, but I would like to know the process going forward so we don't get in that spot, because we don't have a choice and that's not comfortable. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair to follow up with that. I noticed in that table as well, the first part of it, there's no reference to the Legion frontage contribution. And then in the additional cost, there is $128,440 dollars. And so I'm wondering, I mean, I'm thinking that that's a lot for the Legion to bear. And that they had no control over the situation. And they really didn't, I don't think, have any choice but to have to pay this. And I mean, I was thinking it's a renovation, not so much a whole new construction like TELUS Living is. And also that the Legion is a volunteer-run, you know, nonprofit organization. That's been in this community a long time, and it is very important to the downtown. So I think this is quite a hardship on them. And I would want to actually take 100,000 of that and put it towards whatever, wherever we're going to get the money, because I just think it's really a hardship for them and not really fair. Considering the report says that TELUS got something out of it, got their footprint, got benefits out of it. I mean, TELUS has very deep pockets. And also that we are looking to have some special features that are in there that aren't necessarily required to be shortlisted for 2 National Technical Achievement Awards. for the revitalization of Inland Avenue. And that's all very nice and good, but I don't feel the Legion in this transition they're going through, especially, which has been very difficult, would have to bear such a large part of that cost. I don't understand why they're there. So I would want to have a different recommendation where we increase the amount we're asking for, 100,000 to, and have the Legion pay less, 100,000. They'll still pay 25,000, but I think this would just be, I'm sure they'll pay it back in spades once they're up and running and operating, but it just seems very onerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I give staff a moment to think about that? Because I'm processing and not sure there's legalities and precedents and stuff to contemplate in that. So I hear you and I take your point. Maybe you just won't ask for a response quite yet. Councillor Inkster?
Of that list that I'm not sure if we've made a motion to request the list that Councillor Shepherd referred to, but I'm certainly prepared to make that motion to ask for a list to come back with updated costs. I think that I think that we need to be wary of that, but we need to be updated because if council's ever even, I mean, we've all recently went and bought a head of lettuce or a loaf of bread. We know that there's increased costs. So, it would be good to get that list and I'm prepared to make that motion.
So the list you're referring to is the list
updated-
of capital projects?
Yeah, project,
Okay,
updated
we
project
did,
costs.
Mr. Dillon did say the only one he's aware of is, and it's on track, is the Wakefield.
Okay.
So,
there's
I
no-
mean, you can make a motion certainly if
It
you
would
wish,
just
but
contain that amount.
so,
Okay. The reason I was asking if information comes back, is that, what Councillor McLaughlin's thinking and speaking to, it would be good to see if we can find a way to, help the service group that was mentioned, that if we inquired, we'd find that they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into the community annually. That
Okay,
will
with
be
that-
affected by the request that we needed to make as part of the Legion's building. Thanks.
so that's a bit of a different issue than the list of capital projects that may or may not be over budget.
If that list is as financial analysis of the projects that may or not be over with funding mechanisms, it may indicate to council where there's a way to find some savings for a local service group that has spent a lot on having to move their building.
Okay, I'm getting some quizzical looks, so
It's a way to look at if there's any other savings, if that's a way we can do it.
savings on capital projects.
Savings on capital projects, funding mechanisms that come into those projects, the surplus that was mentioned. We can talk about looking to save a local service group money, but we have to find the savings within our budget and or find the money within in order
Right,
to do that. We
so-
can talk about it, but we have to find the
Yeah.
money to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying.
So you're talking to Councillor McLaughlin's point of how do we find a way to, in this case, save money?
Yeah. The Legion is a local
Save-
service group and
Reduce
they've
the
spent a
fee
lot
we're
of money
charging to our,
that we're
that.
having to charge them
Right.
based on.
okay. Councillor Shepherd.
I'll go circle back to the first issue and make a motion that we ask staff to give us a financial update on any capital project that's underway of over $500,000 in value
Okay, of the actual project cost.
of the estimated cost.
Yes, all right, great. Do you want to you want that in a month? Yeah, okay. So is that a second?
Not
Yeah.
seconding
Okay,
it.
very good.
Yeah.
All right. That, you can live with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion on that point? Nope. On that, we talking about that motion, Councillor Bell, please?
I'm just gonna add to that as well. I mean, just a general comment. I am aware of projects that have been shut down as a result of this because of funding situations like this, where the funding has been granted 2 to 3 years earlier, the project has been held up.
Mhm.
And so it is something to flag for sure. How we do that, I don't know, because as I say, costs have gone up. We look at the issues, which are supply chains, not able to get labor, all of those are
Okay.
contributing to
If I
this.
may, just we'll come back, I want to let you
Yeah.
speak to that, but on this motion, So,
I
the-
support the motion.
okay, so we'll vote on this and then we'll come back to you to talk about that. All in favor of this motion? Great. Now, Counselor Bell, so.
No,
yeah,
that's really why I'm supporting the motion, to flag this, because
right.
it is a concern in terms of moving forward in some of these projects.
Mhm.
I don't know how we manage that, but I think we maybe just keep a closer eye on things.
I agree with that. Yep. Okay, so I want to be clear too. We only got the bid for this from NB Contracting. It's in our package of 1.1 million in June of last year. So that's in the report. So that's a current bid. So, I'm curious, how did things get so much higher than, if I'm right, on the 1.6? There must be, I guess the questions are, how much was the ARC work? And how much were the other things that we've had to pay for?
So the archaeology work was around $350,000, representing 20% of the total project costs. To put that in comparison to trail, that is about 6% on trail,
Mhm.
and it's about 10% on wharf. And I have information from TELUS that they've spent in the order of 100,000 on their own site with archaeology. So
Right.
the costs are quite high.
So we had 1.1 from NB, 350 from ARC, for $1 million difference in terms of what the final cost is. So there's got to be something else that,
Well, there was also a requirement to upgrade the ducting too. So initially BC Hydro said they only required 3 conduits and they upped that to 9 conduits. So that added additional costs as well.
okay. I'd like to, in the purpose of making sure we don't get in this spot again, excuse me, I'd like to see this analyzed and brought back to us on this project, just so we have as council, a better sense of where the things are going off base. Like, it's useful to know how much the ARC was, and could we not have contemplated BC Hydro? Again, I come back to it. We have gone to this, committed to this project, I believe, based on about 1.6. Now we're being given a 50% increase, and it's not 3 years ago. Does that make sense? Yep. No, I'm asking if you want to. Sure. Yep. That we see a detailed analysis of what we expected before we started and what actually occurred, or what the costs have transpired with an analysis of what we could have done different. This is a learning exercise. We got to pay it. It's unfortunate, but I'm certainly not going to say we don't pay our bills. Is that a second?
Just for clarification.
Okay. Councillor Shepherd is seconding. Councillor Inkster wants to speak to it.
Yeah, we heard from Mr. Dillon that the archaeological piece was quite a bit higher than previous projects. I think he indicated that. Sounds like basically the original amount, and the additional amount of the archaeological piece was 350. I'm assuming it's 20% of the project is what is referenced, and other projects were 8 and 10%. So there's a good indication of what went sideways on the project. So I'm not sure
One
what else
piece.
we're looking for. Well, I don't know what the other amounts are. There's,
Right.
200,
Which is
you know.
what the motion's about.
yeah, well, $150,000. So,
No,
yeah.
no, remember, we've got more from TELUS and potentially more from the Legion is how we've
Yeah,
got the shortfall down.
okay.
to
I just don't know.
530.
I just don't know where we're going with this with staff, but we'll see what council does.
Okay.
I think they've told us.
Any other questions, Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Not a question. I'm going to be voting in favor of this. I think this is a great example of a project where we can do that pre and post construction sort of budget analysis on it and see, is there stuff that, like, I know that we don't do all our own cost estimating. We do use outside consultants, and I'm wondering if there's, as these projects happen, how much feedback is provided to these cost estimators to further refine, right? Is the next project maybe gonna look like it's gonna cost more, but it won't run over budget? Then that's a great outcome. But it'd be really, yeah, I agree. It'd be really nice to see where the differences were between what we expected and what came out.
Great. Counselor Rowe.
I just want to point out that we did highlight this project when we met with Minister Cullen and Rankin around archaeological costs. And I think the number I quoted was 448,000, which may have maybe included the TELUS piece, but it was 20% of the budget.
Project, yeah.
So just so all of our listeners out there understand that this is something that we're trying to deal with at an advocacy level as well. And if the numbers that staff gave us of projects over time and the percentage of the budget that the ARC costs are taking up is quite impressive in a bad way. But just for
Yeah.
information,
Great,
thanks.
thank you. Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I would like to amend the recommendation to be 630,000 for the reason I've already stated.
We're not there. The motion right now is about doing a post-construction.
Oh, we're
I'd like
still
the
there?
term.
Oh, I
Yeah,
thought maybe.
yeah.
Alton has a way of
Yeah.
jumping ahead quickly sometimes.
He's not jumping just yet. Yeah, yeah. Okay, any other questions on this motion? It's essentially to do a post-construction review compared to what we expected to pay. So if my numbers are right and they're back of the envelope stuff, we expected to pay about 1.6 for this project and it's now 2.4. So the analysis of what are the components of that 50% difference and what can we learn so we don't get in this spot again? And our great corporate officer will make that sound much more concise. Yes,
Yeah,
to the
if I
motion?
could just,
Yeah,
yeah, comment on that also. The Wakefield lift station went up dramatically as well,
yes.
really shockingly. So I don't know if we want to include that in any reviews, but
Okay.
they're,
That could be a separate motion. but
yeah,
The difference is we knew that Wakefield costs were going up a lot before we committed to it. Like we actually agreed to things. We've agreed, I think, and I'm not clear, but to 1.6.
yeah.
It's
Well,
now coming back higher. So it's a little bit different.
but also a little bit the same.
Yes, yeah. Okay, I'll call a question on that. All in favor? Sorry, Counselor Inkster, I didn't see your vote. Yeah, okay, thank you. Motion carries. Okay, can I suggest in the interest of time that we discuss how are we going to pay for this? Yeah, I'd like to move. And there's a second. I'm curious, Mr. Douglas, I guess you made a comment earlier, you said it's either growing communities or prior year surplus. I actually came in to recommend growing communities fund, but I'd like to, you seem to think it could be either or. Is there any, yet the recommendation is prior year surplus? Is there what swung you?
Just that, we have seen, or we will likely see a surplus this year that would be able to handle the cost of this,
Right.
more than handle.
Okay, and my point for council is prior year surplus, we can do anything with it. There are certain, albeit very limited restrictions on what we can do with the Growing Communities Fund. So if we could use the Growing Communities Fund, then we have more flexibility in the future. But it's not something I'm gonna come to the table about. Councilor Toth.
Thank you. I certainly understand the idea of leaving the money that can be more readily used available and in the bank account. I'm happy with the prior year's surplus. It's sort of an unexpected little surprise. You know, we do know that that Growing Communities Fund is intended for, you know, growth of the community and infrastructure that has to come along with that. And really, we started this project before that fund was announced. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
doesn't really
it's
matter
fine.
too much to
Okay.
me, but
Yeah.
in terms of the comment that Councillor McLaughlin made, I am in favor of doing something to lighten the Legion's burden, but I don't know if I'd support a full $100,000. Like, I think $50,000 would be a quite a substantial amount for them, but it wouldn't be that big of a hit for us. So I'd like other comments on that, or otherwise I'll move an amendment.
Right, we have a motion right now to fund 530 from the prior year's surplus. I really think the decision of do we take, grant the Legion some sort of discount should be a subject of a separate staff report. Just because of the potential of unintended precedents, and everybody else comes in saying they want the same. So I'm not disagreeing with the sentiment. I'm just saying we need to be careful that we don't set a precedent. That's my concern, Councillor Inkster.
Well, I mean, I would have, we could have changed the motion to say 580 come from surpluses to reflect that, the Legion, but as I said earlier, it's something that's just come up this meeting. I think it's a good idea. I've thought of it. I've looked at some of their concerns that we've witnessed as a council, that it's been hard on them, the hardship. And I'm prepared, I'll support this, but I'd like to see an additional motion to look at what we can do for them.
Okay.
Others could say that, community services, look what they're wanting to do and look what they may need, right? So service groups that provide services to our growing community, sometimes need some helping hands. Thanks.
Okay. So let's, if I may suggest, let's vote on this motion, and then we can discuss whether we want a motion related to the issue of the Legion. I'll call a question, 530,000 to come from prior surplus. All in favor? Carried. You want to make a motion asking for a staff report? Oops, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. I don't really need to see a staff report on it. I think what we're asking is fairly straightforward. And I think we've got the funds to be able to do it. However, I would like the idea of giving this consideration at maybe the next council meeting. I'm wondering if I should just give a notice of motion right now, procedurally, or if I should make a motion and then we defer it to next meeting.
We make a motion.
Which would be that council approve additional funding for the Inland Avenue Road Improvement Project in the amount of $50,000 to come from prior year's surplus, and that the Sechelt Legion contribution be reduced by the same.
That's a second. Was actually a motion.
It's just a motion.
Yeah.
But we can defer.
So. Get my head around that, but yes. I can't support this without knowing if we're setting a precedent. We referenced the community services and others, so I don't think there's any unwillingness. I understand the sentiment. I just don't want us to make a decisive decision, send any signals until we get the benefit of our staff's input. Councillor
Yeah,
McLaughlin.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, the thing is, this particular cost relates to this particular property due to this particular reason. So I don't think other agencies will come and say, oh, for other reasons we want to. So I think because this is a, physical project, I guess they had to get a development permit for this instead of just a building permit. I think we should, others don't really have a case in that argument, given the circumstances in the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Burrow, thanks.
Am I mistaken, but could other nonprofits looking to upgrade their building or build a building would be required to, do some things that they may then want to, or come back to ask to be excused from. Right? So even though, because of it's part of a larger project, I think it still sets a precedent, and as much as I'd love
Yep.
to, I think it needs to be considered carefully.
I'll offer one other thought. We leave it as is, but then we entertain a, whatever, a committee, what's it called? A community, grant to offset some of this. We could do that at some point in the future. That would eliminate the potential precedent that I'm concerned about. Counselor Shepherd.
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. Do we have a motion in front of us?
We do.
And, sorry, can we get the motion again?
$50,000 funded from prior year surplus. The Legion contribution be reduced by the same.
Okay.
Okay. So everybody clear on that motion?
Thank you. I guess I don't see a precedent in that this is, they would have been required to do some work. You know, we've seen a number of emails from them that do represent a range of costs. And so we know that they would have had to do some work if we were not doing Inlet Avenue at this time. You know, it's really Inlet Avenue that's turned into a, cash contribution from the Legion. I don't know that their contribution may have been as much if we were not doing as expansive a project, I guess is what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of a precedence, if we're upgrading the road in front of another community services group that's doing construction and they're having a hardship to pay, then sure, come to us. Like, let's have that conversation. I don't really see the risk of it's not like we're upgrading every road in Seashelt every year. So I think this is one that we've sort of instigated. And I think us contributing to helping them is not really that big of a problem. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Shepherd?
Yeah, I understand the sentiment. I'm concerned that this has just suddenly popped up. And we're not taking a little bit time here to consider the ramifications of this, how to do it properly. So I'm going to vote against the motion.
Thank you. Counselor Bell first.
Through the chair, as much as I would very much like to support giving them more money at this point, or having them pay less, yes, I'm concerned about whether you call it precedent setting or one-offs. I think we need to be very careful of that. So whether we have a further conversation about this and set some criteria or, some criteria, I'll call it criteria. We should continue, we should look at that, I think, further.
Okay.
Because these things could come to the table again, and it would be good for us to
Right.
be prepared.
Thank you. Okay, Counselor Inkster?
Yeah, thanks. Over the years, we've helped a lot of groups in a lot of different ways, whether it's tax exemptions and other money we've given to them, like the tennis club over the years. I think we should look at them. I see this one not being supported tonight, probably by 4 council members, just to see because it's been popped on us. But I'd like to see it come back. I would just ask council, and it's a luck thing for the Legion to be locating on a road that we're doing some work to. Because I would ask council how much we charged the senior center for the work on Trail Avenue a number of years ago.
Mhm.
Nothing, because they weren't making changes while we were making changes.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
So this is a luck thing for a really active, functional, community-orientated service group that does a lot. So
Yep.
if it goes down, I'd like to see it come back soon with some help from staff as to how we help the Legion with over $100,000 in extra costs. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, I think I can speak for all of us. We're not voting against the Legion if we vote this down. We're voting against the process at this stage. So I'll call it. Okay, no, but so be it. Any other All, no, nothing else? I'll call the question. All in favor? 1, 3 opposed. The motion is defeated. Okay. Anything else on item 1 of our agenda?
So, what are we doing with that one? Is he coming back?
I think it would be up to any of council if you wish to do a notice of motion, or if staff want to, has heard some of this, they might volunteer something, but
Okay, I think Counselor Toth had a moment, you had a notice of motion.
no, you turned it into a motion for. I'm gonna suggest we move on. None of us are gonna forget it.
Okay, well,
We'll be able to deal
I'll-
with it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
I'll probably pull that out of minutes next time then.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go from that one to a real complex one. Parcel tax roll panel appointments on page 9. I'm hoping somebody will offer to take over my role, please. Whoever makes the motion is on the committee. Okay. Any discussion on this, folks? Very straightforward. So if somebody would like to move it and second it, thank you. Are you speaking to it or you just, okay. Nope. All in favor of both? That's 1 and 2 on page 9. Carried. Okay, then we go to Councillor Toth's motion. This is on page 20. And Councillor Toth, do you want to say anything about this?
Thank you. Yeah, I should probably provide a little bit of context. I'm bringing this forward as a sort of an easy way to try and identify some portions of road dedications in the community that we might be able to use for affordable housing, whether that's a duplex, modular housing construction, garden suites, whatever. I'm not looking to reinvent the wheel here. Gibson's went through the exact same process with their Harmony Lane project. And they partnered with the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society. And the town of Gibson's leased them the land. And they built a duplex plus a garden suite in the road dedication. So some of those units are at market and some of them are below market. I'm asking for the community associations to participate in this because we regularly hear from them that they don't feel that we consult with them enough. They know their areas best. And rather than us taking staff time to identify parcels and then having them react to a decision, I thought that we would start by inviting them to participate. It may be that of the options brought forward, only 1 or 2 or maybe none would be suitable. And we may still end up having to spend some staff time looking at what it would take to put together agreements, site servicing, things like that. But we need to innovate and try some different things because Seashell doesn't own a whole lot of land, but we do own these road dedications. So I'd like to make the motion that's on the agenda.
Okay, and that's a second. Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Shepherd.
I have no questions. I'm in support of the motion. You know, we're working with the community associations to become much more involved in serious issues confronting the town. Housing is one. I know the community associations are heavily involved in or leading the way in emergency preparedness. That's coming up May 11th for everyone to attend. And housing is another area where they can get involved. So I think it's I commend Councillor Toth for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster and then Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, I would, we'll see what happens. If I were people, I'd look at cul-de-sacs and see where if that cut off a continued road dedication, because that can happen. I will say that, this is an idea that we may be able to utilize. We were able to pay the balance on Mission Point Park by selling a road dedication with a topographical challenge in Davis Bay. And that paid the balance and had the park completely owned by the District of Seashell within 1 year. Within 1 to 2 years of its original purchase with a road dedication that couldn't be used because of the topography. So it's a good idea. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Yes, thank you through the chair. When this item first came up, I was a little bit concerned that we're asking community associations to start scrounging around and do some planning and have great maps and come up with solutions. I think they have other real housing concerns right now than to start doing this, but I would encourage them to look at the Harmony Lane project. And also, I think this will probably go through, so the community associations, I hope they can contact the planning department and get some support with that. And also get maybe a learning lesson in terms of putting projects down, setbacks, concerns, and also highlight, even if they find something, if they think it's not appropriate because of their concerns and knowing the community and knowing traffic, like even Harmony Lane, I often try and go to the senior center there and I end up going down the wrong area. And I thought, oh my gosh, if they take away any land there, they're not even gonna ever find Harmony Hall. But they managed to squeeze something in there. So, I mean, if we can do small projects like this, I think that's worthwhile because we're really caught up in the grand planning gestures lately. And this might be a way to do some sensitive infill and help some needy members of our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. Oh, no. Councillor
Through the
Bell?
Chair, just making a final comment then. I also support this. I think there's no, it's no secret that we have a tremendous affordable housing situation crisis on the Sunshine Coast. The more eyes we can have out there, we talk about we don't have a lot of land. If we can have people out there coming up with some creative ideas, at least letting us know about them, we would welcome that. This is a great community opportunity. Thank you.
Great. And I dare say if it's somebody other than a community association, we'll take that suggestion as well. But it's you first. All right, I'll call a question. All in favor of the motion on page 21? Carried. 21, I hope. Oh, sorry, 20. Everybody was voting on page 20?
Yeah.
That's how we move the agenda faster. Yep. Okay, then we'll go to page 21. And the delightfully named SHMOO for small scale multi-unit housing. Council, do you have any start with a motion, or do you want to seek clarification first? I know we
I'll
have
move-
these.
I'll move recommendation 1.
Okay, second, okay. Any discussion from you folks, please? Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you, yes. Just wanted clarification that references to, where's the table? I don't want people to get confused with the village infill area and the village of Seashell area, because the infill area is the longstanding residential area. And there's some reference here on page 23 about urban infill and small lot. I don't know if the planning department could give a little bit of context there, because it is, you know, these are complicated matters.
Yes.
I-
So can I, if I may, just, this motion is about us deciding whether to direct staff to spend some time on this. So comments like that I think are really helpful. I'm sure staff would want to hear those. But my question is how much, what does this involve, and is it funded to do this work? Mr. Allen?
Thank you, your worship. While the recommendation is for us to direct bylaws, there's also been a order from the province to do so as well. It's just our way of introducing this and what's coming next. We didn't want to show up at a council meeting with bylaws already drafted. And so in January of this year, the province provided funding for all municipalities and regional districts to implement SHMOO, small scale multi-unit housing, through Bill 44. Our share of the capacity funding based on population was roughly $200,000, slightly more. Some of that money has been committed towards the mandatory update to our housing needs assessment. Housing needs assessment was just completed in 2020, so it's relatively modern. And so we have funding available, yes, for a variety of means, the amenity cost charge bylaw, updating of our OCP as we move forward and so forth. But at this point, this work here is proposed to be done by staff. I think that the one benefit that we have here with the relatively new zoning bylaw 580 that council adopted in 2022, it's quite easily portable and amendable for SHMU. We have the zones in place, but Sechelt is complex in its composition with outer lying areas, the urban containment boundary extending all the way through up into parts of Sandy Hook, for example, Davis Bay, that aren't serviced by sewer. This will apply. Our municipality is of a size threshold that if we have an urban containment boundary, SHMU applies, but then the next level down are their services. So really this will apply largely to the areas that have both water and sewer mains. And so then you can peel that back a little bit further in the R4 zone in the downtown village area, let's say from Mermaid through to Spindrift or Ebbtide, has services. The R3 zone's a smaller lot zone. There's some of that in West Sechelt, but those parcels are largely built on already. The R2 zone is a little bit complex. The R2 zone is, in this case, in this context, applicable in West Sechelt and West Porpoise Bay. But there's lots of areas of West Sechelt where there is sewer at one house and not the neighboring house in the R2 zone. Some of those areas may well get sewer soon. Some of them may well never get sewer. And so that's our biggest challenge, is what to do with the R2 zone. The R1 zone primarily being in the outer lying areas through the Davis Bay, Wilson Creek, through the extremity of West Sechelt and Sandy Hook, Tewanek, will be exempt. It doesn't meet the criteria for the SHMU. And then, and council has seen the R6 zone as well. And the R6 zone is our model zone. And what we're looking at this time is to use that for development application properties such as Mills Road, such as Derby Road. And it might have a little bit more, as council has discussed, stringent requirements about a minimum number of dwellings, perhaps two. But we don't want to bring that in for the R4 zone, the R3 zone, where upon we would make properties that only have one unit as non-conforming. There's guidance in the guidebook, the SHMU guidebook about that. And we want to be careful on that. So this is the first of the report to start the ball rolling here. We'll be bringing back bylaws, going through the proceedings, and have a deadline of later in June, which includes statutory approval from the Ministry of Transportation, which on other projects has taken weeks and months, although I understand they have a team that's ready to stand by to approve these types of bylaws. The province recognizes that this is a substantive change, the biggest change to the Local Government Act in 2 or 3 decades. The ball started rolling in 2019 with the mandatory housing needs assessment. You've seen short-term rental regulations, and that's coming up on the agenda. And we've seen all these changes, and now already they're mandating updating the housing needs report. So as you well know, the province is very focused on housing. I think, as you well know, through our initial application of the Housing Accelerator Fund and this week's announcement that the federal government is quite forward-looking on housing as well. So it's not to say that the single-family dwelling will not be permitted anymore. It's to find opportunities to do more. And that's what the SHMU zoning does. It's not clear what our demand might be. The zoning bylaw 580 adopted in 2022 allows for many of these provisions, and the interest has not been particularly strong. So it's not clear what the demand will be, but it is clear that the supply, if you will, that the regulations must change to permit this. And we'll be moving forward with future reports this spring. Thank you.
So we're funded.
Yes.
Okay, can I just before, what is the process between now and June? Are we going to have a working session? Are we going to be engaging with the public? What do you anticipate between now and the end of June to complete this process? And since you can answer both then, what if we're late? Do we get a wrist slap? Do we get a penalty? Do we?
That's not clear, but we've developed a path that will ensure us to be ready on time.
And that involves working sessions with us or public input or?
Correct. So that this staff report presents some options, some ideas. We're happy to work that through, we can return to committee of the whole should council desire. Our planning staff are putting together an open house day on May 14th with a number of initiatives relating to this and other housing items. And further work will be at the discretion of council. That said, we know that we must make the changes, and we also know that we'll be expressly not permitted to hold a public hearing pursuant to the legislation.
Yep.
Okay.
That was called a soft lob, so you could say those things. Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair, to administration. Well, yeah, in this report, you've asked for some feedback. And so I did raise on page 24 of 205 that, you know, you were looking at the R2 to R4 zoning, maybe changing it, introduce an R6 zone to replace those two zonings. I mean, I'm sure you know in your mind what that might look like. I have some background and I sort of know what it looks like. But I mean, it can be pretty scary. What I don't want to see happen is have upzoning in the village area so that the demolition of existing homes becomes the way to go because people want to, increase this extent. And it could be speculation, therefore putting people out of rentals, putting people out of their homes. And too much upzoning actually can actually make the cost of taxation, property tax on a home, too much for people to even afford their own home. So it's we don't know for sure how it's going to play out. Like you say, we don't know how many are going to go ahead, but these are potential problems. So I think it would be nice to have the planning department lay out the pros and cons of the different approaches. And just because we can implement an extreme amount of policy change and throughout an entire Sechelt, doesn't mean we have to. We have to show that we're making some effort. But we are not a high growth area. And I don't think the province expects us to go gangbusters to satisfy them. I don't think they do. So the areas that have servicing are West Sechelt, and West Sechelt Community Association has expressed concern and they need to see what that might look like. Some diagrams that show a lot and the possible density implications and building envelope implications. We know what happened with the Vancouver Special when developers built to the maximum envelope. You know, it really changed in ways I think, unforeseen, unintended consequences of what happened. Now, in the end, we've learned to like those Vancouver Specials, but we don't want to have kind of a Frankenstein backyard developments that are 4 stories, 6 stories high in the village of Sechelt in an effort to have backyard units with an incredible amount of density, et cetera.
That's why, Councillor, I was asking Mr. Allen, what is the process? Some of your comments, I think.
Yeah, I'm
we'll
giving you
comment
feedback.
the next, and I think that the intention is for us to give that feedback the next session, whenever
Well,
that is in
The
the
sooner they
next
get the
few weeks.
feedback, the better, because
Yep.
actually this other item
Not
we have
tonight.
on the agenda relates to that. Why are we going ahead with FAR when we haven't even figured out how to do SHMU? Like, to me, the main thing is SHMU. And once we have that, then we can know
Okay.
other things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Top.
Thank you. On page 24, staff have outlined, welcoming council feedback direction, following our options in order of preference under consideration 1, 2, 3. I believe that I understand these to be essentially mutually exclusive options. So I just look for confirmation from staff that that is indeed the case. And so I wonder if staff could speak a little bit to the sort of the pros and cons, but why they came up with the priorities that they did. I personally happen to agree with priority 1 on this list. Like, I think option 1 is the way that we should be going, but staff did present 2 other options here for us, which means they gave contemplation to other options. And so I was just wondering if staff would be interested in speaking a little bit to why those options may not have floated to the top of the list. Thanks.
Can you give us a brief
Sure.
response to that?
Okay, I'll start from the bottom up. So it ranks 1 being preference down to 3. So when we created zoning bylaw 580, it starts with the zones. Traditionally, bylaws would start with definitions and general uses. Our experience or user experience in dealing with members of the public is they always start with, I'm in the R2 zone, I'm in the R4 zone. So we really wanted to highlight zones. Number 3 would potentially just to add a statement in the general use section that if you're serviced, you can accomplish SHMU. But we still think people will go to the R2 zone or the R3 zone and look at that. And it's a challenge, an extra challenge to go down to the table. That said, it's the easiest to amend, to draft the bylaw. It's the easiest way to get there, but it might not be the most user-friendly moving forward. Number two, again, we just created this bylaw. It is a little bit challenging because we created zoning bylaw 580 with a number of zones reflective of policies in the OCP, such as the small lot zone, the R3 zone. So then this option basically includes removing those zones, and then you have the R1 zone, the low density, and the R6 zone, and nothing in between. So then do we stay with R1, R6? Does the R6 become the R2 and people are accustomed to being in the R2 zone? Now they have an R2 zone that doesn't reflect the zone formerly known as R2. Okay, so to get down to up to the original preferred option, the R4 zone in the downtown Sechelt Village area already permits 3 units. It's very simple to amend that to add an additional unit. Quite simple. The R3 zone, albeit a small lot zone, probably, if you take Tyler Heights, for example, the houses are there. Some of them are in strata corporations. Highly unlikely, improbable, if not impossible, to add 3 more units on some of those. Building code still applies, setbacks still apply. But it's fairly simple to add another 1 to 2 dwelling units to that zone. The structure is there. But again, so then the challenge is the R2 zone. The R2 zone, I'll take Mason Road as an example. I'm familiar with Mason Road. Some properties on Mason Road have direct connection to sewer lines. You've got Ewell Road, Meyer Road, Linwood Court that slope away and don't have the benefit of gravity to get to that sewer, or not on sewer. So then you have this R2 zone that has a real mix. You take the Mills Road, Christian Bly area, there's development potential in that area that council has seen that will likely extend sewer lines. So you have areas that are presently not in sewer that soon likely will be. So it's a real challenge at R2 zone to clarify that. And so I do think we need a notation. Ultimately, legally, it's implied that you require the requisite servicing to achieve the zoning, but if it's not written there, surely there'll be mistakes made potentially by staff, potentially by current and future owners, and we have to find a way to exemplify and clarify that. And hence our recommendations. That said, open to different ideas. Thank you.
Well briefed, thank you. Well said briefly. Okay, council, we have a motion on page 21. Definitely 21 this time. Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, did you vote?
Well,
Members? Yes. Okay.
I think it's
So I called the question.
Opposed.
Opposed. Okay, Council, thank you. Okay, folks, so we're running well behind my internal clock. We'll turn to the next items. And before we do, I'm wondering if council would like to move anything around or anticipate we will not get through everything? Ready? No? No suggestions? Okay, we'll carry on with item 6.1. And this is the short-term rental business license amendment, bylaw 52007-2024. How would you like to proceed, council? Councillor Shepherd? Thank you.
I'll move the recommendation 1 on page 26.
Okay, second. Okay, yes. Oh, no, we got a seconder, thanks. So, any comments or concerns, folks? As council knows, I did ask, this is before us for adoption. I did flag it for council that I'd asked everybody to give some further thought to this because it went through in a very long meeting on March 20th. So I'm grateful for staff to picking up and splitting the two items into different reports. And I've got more questions on the next one. I think I will leave it there. My concerns, yes, please.
Thank you. I'm curious why you wanted it brought back for reconsideration specifically. Because like, that's a pretty specific legislative
Yes.
process that we use, and so I was a
I'm-
little confused as to why you wanted it brought back for reconsideration, so I'm
Yeah.
surprised you're not speaking to that for us.
I'm happy to. I was expecting my note sent to council and staff to be part of the agenda package. So my comments in that were that the March 20th meeting agenda and the public hearing held immediately prior, so we went from 6 PM to 10 PM. The meeting went very long and very late, even after deferring some agenda items. So I said it in my email, I am concerned that discussion of these matters was rushed and received less than full consideration by council. For example, during the meeting, I heard comments from one or more councillors to the effect of, come on, let's get this done and get the meeting over with. That may have meant that we, as council, did not take adequate time for debate and full consideration. And my concern was reaffirmed when a councillor contacted me the next day expressing similar concerns. So that's, as I said, that is the primary reason for me bringing these items back. I just felt that we hadn't had the opportunity to fully and carefully consider the matters given the length of the agenda. So I am satisfied that I note that one of the items that I sought to bring back for reconsideration is not yet on our council agenda. That's the subdivision and development control. So I hope that, or I assume we'll see that later. But this is my request was to split this one, the short-term rental business license bylaw, and the nonprofit organization or business license into two reports, which have been done to match the two bylaws. So I can speak to the second one when we get to it. So, please.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because we were only giving 3 readings. We can't do adoption at the same meeting that we give 3 readings. So we have that delay built into the process. So I appreciated the extra context. With the third bylaw, I think there was a motion made for a staff report for some items to come back before we gave it any further readings. So I suspect we're still waiting for that information to come back.
I assume so, yep. Okay, so council is satisfied that they've had enough time to go through this. We're now talking about only the short-term rental business license bylaw. Okay? Yep. Okay. As I say, one member of council had some concerns, so if that person is satisfied, that helps a lot. He said carefully not looking at any one of the councillors. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Then we go to item 6.1B, the business license amendment bylaw. And this is before us for adoption, so this is on page 29. Okay. The comment I would make, it is a small thing, but you know, I did flag for staff that the bylaw, there is a small typo still, and this is in the near the top of page 30, item 3B. And if you read the second to last line, within the dwelling or accessory dwelling on the property of the principal residence. I don't propose to make it there were some other changes that have been made for which I appreciate, but can we live with that, council? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of adoption? I'm opposed. I'm still concerned about some of the process, but okay, motion carries. We go to 6.2. Now, this was one that I spoke to during the last meeting, and I continue to have concerns, so I'll entertain council's direct wish. Do you want to discuss it first, or do you want to have a motion? Councillor Shepherd.
I'll move the recommendation one on page 32.
Second, yeah, thanks. Okay, anybody want to speak first? Yeah, please.
If you could explain, again, remind us why you're opposed. I mean, I felt that there was a lot of bureaucratic work for something that maybe was not necessary,
Mhm.
but you know, other councillors seem to think it's worthwhile, so thank you.
Yep, all right, thanks for the lead. Yes, I agree with that. I think it's a lot of work to ask organizations to get a license when what we were told is one organization was looking for a grant and was told you need either a business license or a letter confirming you don't need a business license. And I'd like to understand out of that, we've got this whole set of bylaws and administrative procedures, and I'm still not sure if who actually needs to apply for these. And if they don't, what is the consequence? So, you know, the idea that we're doing all this so that organizations can apply for a grant, it just seems unnecessarily complex. I have other concerns that when we use the term business, that has taxation implications, that you could be considered to be a business. If so, you have to file tax returns and in theory be subject to tax. So I worry in our old legislation, we talked about a nonprofit organization, but despite my comments and my request to reconsider, they were still using the term nonprofit business. As a recovering tax person, that causes me concern. I'd like to know, for example, page 32, a few examples of District Sechelt at the bottom, nonprofit businesses this bylaw amendment would apply to. I stand to be corrected, but not all of them are listed there are societies. So we're now into a territory of who has to apply. And I'm concerned again, do we then start chasing people saying, hey, you didn't, you didn't take out a $1 license, so we're going to charge you a $100 penalty? It just seems like we're doing a lot of work for what it, to me is I'd like to understand maybe from staff, what is the reason, what is the rationale for bringing something like this before us? You know, does a community association need to be registered? They're not a society, but somewhere in here, there's a reference to, doesn't actually say you must be registered. I think in the bylaw, it says an organization recognized as a society. So it's, you get a sense of the range of my concerns. We also, at the top of page 33, we say that staff set the District of Sechelt rate at $1 as a financial transaction must take place in order to produce a business license. However, I see then below that, Gibson's, West Van, and District of North Van do not charge, but I assume they have a business license situation. So the summary question is, why are we doing all this? Why are we spending the time? And I'd rather not do it at all and write a letter for anybody who wants a grant. Thank you. Counselor Bell.
One of the things that was brought up with, through the chair, and one of the things that was brought up was staff time, concern around staff time.
Mhm.
Is that a concern? And I'd like to ask staff of that. Do we, please?
Sure. So what staff time, what staff costs are involved?
Time.
Yeah. Time is money, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure who I'm looking.
Thank you, Your Worship. To speak to the question on staff time, we reviewed the entire business license list just to see which nonprofits may already be included in, already have a business license, and that is the full list that's included on the report. So there are a total of 5. In doing that investigation, we also discovered that there's some inconsistency in process with the way we're issuing those licenses to the nonprofits. Some of them actually aren't paying, and some of them are. So this bylaw amendment would equalize that process and provide a fair opportunity for everybody to access a business license. If they're a for-profit, they'll be charged $125, and if they're a nonprofit, it would be a $1 charge. So the staff time to issue these licenses is fairly minimal for renewals. So these 5 renewals would basically not take much staff time at all. For a new nonprofit, the difference would be if they have a storefront or if they're operating and selling goods and services from a site that's not something that needs to be inspected. So that would be the difference. The staff time that would be allocated to that would not be covered by the dollar, certainly, but
Mhm.
that would be a service we would be providing to the community to have additional nonprofits come in.
Say that, I'm sorry, say the last bit.
The dollar wouldn't cover the staff time.
Right.
It would simply be a service that the district would be providing.
To what benefit would be my response, and it's rhetorical for now. Counselor Shepherd, thank you, thank you. Whoops, try it again.
If staff are recommending this, so that there's equal treatment of licensing, then, and other communities have the same similar bylaw, I don't know why there's such time spent on this, to tell you the truth. It seems administrative, and the amount of staff time is minimal, given the sort of relatively small numbers. So I'm confused as to why we're spending this much time on it.
Counselor McLaughlin and then Counselor Bell.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm just wondering if there might be a lot of groups that should be on this list but are not. And so it's kind of an accounting question, I think. I talked to my accountant about it. And I thought maybe they need to make a certain amount of money, like 30,000 a year, before they feel they have to get into this whole financial, situation of being a business and all that. So I guess some clarification on that, because if there are a lot of agencies that are not getting licenses that should, I mean, maybe that is an issue. But, because we do want people to abide by the law, right? So I think if there's a financial limit of 30,000 or something like that, it'd be nice to know, because then we know who's applying and why we would expect, these are pretty big organizations. I would expect most of them make more than 30,000. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, interesting, thank you. Counselor Bell?
Through the chair, I think if this cleans up the bylaw, that, and then we have some people that are, it's inconsistent and like to see this. So in other words, we've got people that are, some are paying, some are not. And this is what you had said, Director, yes. So I think it's good. I'd like to support this.
Okay. So the other cost, are we going to be enforcing this? Because that's the bigger cost of any of these systems.
Enforcement is typically done by complaint. So if there were an issue, perhaps a safety issue with a building or something like that, then that certainly would be, hopefully would be reported and it would be investigated at that point. We do not currently have any plans to go out and actively assess all nonprofit organizations in the district to see if they are operating as a business or not. It's up to each organization to abide by federal and provincial law as well as our bylaws.
So does the Coasters Car Club, this is the first one that comes to mind, do they need to register? How will they know, sorry, how will they know if they need to register?
If they're operating as a business, then they would need to register. If they're selling goods and services, then that would be operating a business.
So they sell T-shirts
I-
on the car club?
I don't have the details on the exact definitions of when they need to be reporting taxation and things like that, so
No, but I'm asking how do they know? Because I agree with the comment, we want to make sure we comply. But how do we're gonna have to, and this goes back to staff time, how do we explain to people, you do need to register or you don't?
we would just have to ask them to follow the provincial regulations.
No,
On
this is
those?
about our business license.
It's about the definition of operating as a corporation, as a profitable or non-profitable organization. So I can bring some more information back to
Right.
a future meeting if you like.
Well, yes, because these are not, they're a society based on the bylaws. So now we're talking about a corporation, which is different. Coasters Car Club, to my knowledge, is not a corporation. There may be a society, but they are selling.
So currently, the process would be application-based. If they need a business license for a purpose, for example, to get insurance for a facility that they're operating or to apply for a certain grant, and they would like to ask for a business license, this just simply provides them an opportunity to access that without spending $125.
Right. But if they're holding big events, 125 might not be the biggest issue, but okay, thank you. Counselor Totten?
Thank you. I'm just thinking about the nonprofits that I've been involved in the past, and they've usually got, well, I can't think of a single one that doesn't at least have a semi-qualified bookkeeper handling their finances and their back end. Somebody has to handle the filings with the BC Corporate Registry, even for nonprofits. It's gonna be incumbent on them to know whether they need this business license or not. Like, we shouldn't be holding everybody's hand and making sure they're filing correctly and that they're categorized correctly. That, at the end of the day, is the responsibility of the directors of the organization, society, whatever you want to call it. That's up to them to police themselves.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? All right, well, we have the recommendation on page 32 to adopt the bylaw. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? I'm opposed. Motion carries. We then go to 6.2B, which is the bylaw itself. And if I may, I want to just seek clarification under the definitions. We say nonprofit business means an organization recognized as a society. Should it not be registered? Like, what does recognized mean? Yes, so somebody's jumping in. Yes, please.
Thank you. I would just say that it's a synonym for registered. So if you'd like it to be registered, we would be happy to do that.
I'd like it to be something very different, as everybody's heard, but yes, I think specifically, it should be, well, yes, registered as at a minimum.
If council would like that change, we're happy to make it.
I would agree, just to be clear. I think the word recognized, there's an assumption that in order to be recognized as a society, you have to be registered. Otherwise, you're calling yourself something that you're not. So I get recognized, but I would agree that registered would just take away anyone who doesn't have to happen to really know the process. So I would support that change.
Which involves an change to the bylaw. Hmm? Right? As adoption. Then, yeah. Okay. All right, so that's a, whatever we call it, a friendly amendment or? Okay. Second, all in favor? Carried. Okay, and so then we're moving adoption of 5/20/08/2024 as amended. Seconded or moved and seconded. Okay. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? I'm opposed. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, we go to item 6.3 on the agenda and council. Yes, please,
Yes.
Council McLaughlin.
I would like to move option 1, defer consideration of third and final readings until after a public information meeting, followed by another statutory public hearing.
And I'll second that. Yep, okay. Sure. Discussion? Please.
Thank you. I actually support this option. I think there was, we heard enough confusion, uncertainty about how it was going to affect people, what it meant, things like that, that to hit pause on it. You know, we've got town planning day, May 14th. That's a great opportunity. Spread some awareness, get some more information out there for people, help them with their understandings. I don't think it's gonna significantly hurt us or anything that we're trying to accomplish at this time, so I'm fully supportive of taking a pause on this.
Councillor Inkster,
Yeah, I think we're,
you're speaking against the motion or you're speaking in favor? Maybe we can move this along.
oh, you don't want me to say anything?
I would never say that.
Okay. Okay, I think it's a good idea. Planning staff was expecting us to send this back to the community as was indicated last week. I'm voting in favor. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, then I'll call the question. All in favor of option 1 on page 37? Carried. Okay, thank you. And so we then go to, wow, 6.4 on page 94. There. Which of course is the rezoning for 5700 East Porpoise Bay Road before us for second reading. Anybody want to make a motion or, yeah, just, I'm trying to, if we can get things on the table, then is that a motion or is that? Yeah, I'm willing. Okay. And which is what? Well, then we'll talk about it. Okay, is there a second? Okay, seconded. Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you. Through the chair, I wanted to make a motion to defer this. I don't support it going to second reading at this point. This particular property, it seems from previous projects that they are not moving ahead with this in the near term at all because they want to use it for a storage facility for their other nearby project that they want to do. Also, I think our planner suggested that we have approved many, many years of future development, given our growth rate, 10 years, I think, already, I think he said. So I don't see why there's a rush to do this one. I'm getting concerned that too many projects being approved puts us in a position where we haven't collaborated, which I would like to do with our RD partners, First Nation partners, and the town of Gibson's about what the future population should be like here in terms of water summit. We seem to have a limit that we need to work within, which is drinking water. And I'm just concerned that developers are pushing through too many developments, and we're supporting that. I think, which in my mind is not in the public interest, because we need to protect the water situation for current residents and not be too optimistic about what we want to do for Sea Shelter development. We have to also consider that other RD areas have development plans as well, and so does Sea Shelter Nation, and we haven't done any deliberations about that exact consequence. So certainly we have a lot on the books already, and to postpone this one for, I don't know, it probably would mean starting over, actually, because I can't postpone it for merely 30 days or 60 days or whatever. I think it would have to be basically,
So you're opposed to the motion?
totally, yeah, I'm opposed to the motion
All right.
for those reasons. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Counselor Toth and Counselor, I see your.
Thank you. Even if this was approved today, the proponent still needs to work through archaeological permitting. They need to work through a site servicing agreement. They need to work through the development permit process. There's a lot that would still need to come, even if we approved this today and we're done with it. I wonder, like, I know we've heard issues with archaeological permits taking up to 1.5 years to get approved. I wonder if staff had any comment on the length of time a development permit or a site servicing agreement for this property might take. I'll have a follow-up comment after that.
All
Thanks.
right. I see a microphone on. Mr. Hall?
Certainly we'd, at the development permit application stage, be getting further into the preliminary servicing, and I think they could certainly even submit a servicing agreement application to start working on that and get into the detailed design. So those could kind of proceed somewhat concurrently, so that when council would be considering approval of a development permit, they know that there's no major servicing issues sorted out. Ultimately, yeah, there would be the development permit piece, the servicing agreement piece, building permit, building permits for each individual building in this particular case. So yeah, there's definitely a lot still to be worked through.
You have that, I mean, I think the question is time frame and.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the development permit would have to go to the Advisory Planning Commission. So, and you'll have to do staff review. So I mean, we're talking 2 to 3 months at least to kind of get through that before we're coming to council. Servicing agreement, again, would probably be several months at least in terms of review. And then getting through the building permit stage after that.
So months, months and months. 10 months.
Yeah.
Counselor Toth.
Thank you. And that's just of our own permitting time. There's still the archaeological work that needs to be done. Yeah. On top of that, we know that downtown Sea Shelter is a hotbed for artifacts. So it's not like they're going to get a waiver from the nation in terms of archaeological requirements.
Mm-hmm.
I would. The water supply comment really bothers me because of the length of time these projects take to get moving on. And I would bet any one of the folks at this table $100 that we'll get a new source of water online before this project gets its shovels in the ground. That's just my comment.
I heard you're on, but the chair won't recognize that comment. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to Counselor Bell. Please.
Yes, through the
Pull,
chair.
pull the microphone down a bit too.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I have a question on page 95, and it's in one of on point 2, that prior to consideration of second reading, the applicant provides the following information. The first one, I see that there's a fairly comprehensive water wiser approach report that's provided. And I just wanted to ask the question to staff, just at this point in time, are they comfortable that we have that this includes a good plan for sustainability at this point? Is there anything missing that needs to be added?
I think at this time, staff are comfortable with it, what the applicants are proposing, and as part of the recommendations, similar to other rezoning applications, we're looking for the applicants to confirm their more detailed water conservation measures to be implemented at the development permit stage prior to the rezoning being adopted. So that would kind of take from this report and really nail down exactly what they're going to do. And then that would be kind of carrying forward to the development permit application, so that when they're bringing that back to council, there's that connection between what they've committed to at the rezoning stage and to what's being implemented through the development permit.
Excellent, thank you. And I just have one more about the transportation impact assessment and parking study. One of the things that I believe was brought up as a concern around this project was that four-way stop, you know, just the whole traffic impact there. And as I saw on this report, I didn't see anything, a more recent study, and it was mentioned in the executive study or report around September 1, 2017. Has there been anything more recent than that at this point?
Yeah, we have worked with the applicants and their engineers and our engineers and looked at this intersection, and that would be part of further servicing work as we get to the servicing agreement stage to determine what upgrades would be required for the intersection, what would be the responsibility of the applicant. Are there any DCC credits that might be available if there's a DCC eligible project, and kind of finalizing what the details of what would be done to the intersection as part of this project.
Excellent, thank you. I'm happy with that.
All right, thank you. So there's more traffic study happening after? Second,
Not necessarily more traffic study, but, you know, we would get into the more detailed engineering design of what's actually being done to the intersection.
I see. Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you through the chair. In terms of water conservation,
To me.
yeah, I don't think that this project is really going to offer any great solutions, because in a few years, we're all going to be super water conservers. We're all going to have to do as much as we can to conserve water. This is why we're getting,
Talk to the chair.
I'm looking at you. And I
Okay.
can look at administration as well.
No.
And so I don't really feel that that's much consolation unless they're planning to conserve great big volumes of water with under building storage or something like that. I haven't heard of anything like that, which is probably the way we should be going. Also, this particular location is not, as the traffic studies have indicated, is not really ideal for a housing project. It's very busy industrial area. It's very busy streets with a lot of traffic from trucks.
Industrial?
Well, industrial, yeah, Wharf is getting.
Commercial maybe, but
Well, it's commercial industrial. It's got car dealerships and stuff on it. What do you think? Those are not commercial. Those are more industrial. Plus, we also have a lot of trucks coming from the gravel pits around there, a lot of noise. We've got, traffic coming from the float planes. Well, there should be actually more float planes going over that route because that was their designated route.
Right.
Until I don't know when. So this is not really an ideal location anyway. I think it's good to look at other locations. We have lots already going on in the village. To postpone this until we may come up with a better idea for it in 5 years. So we haven't reviewed our OCP either in terms of where we might have special development permit areas regarding certain things like environmental and things, given that it's so close to Porpoise Bay, et cetera. So I just don't think this is the right time to go ahead with this project. And it's better to put a halt to it now, because as we know, when we start something in Seashelt on the approval process, we tend to carry on through. Councillor Inkster has kind of commented on that, like it's rare for us to stop such a project under any circumstances. But I think in this case, it is worth doing that. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, thanks, Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I wish there was more drawings of the building again in front of us for the public to see. I'd like to see more, I really would like to see more on the street level height there when they're building. Makes more sense to me to densify in that spot. As I indicated before, it's at the front of the building. So I'll say that again because I just think it might need a slight tweak to the frontage on Wharf. Generally though, I'm okay with this. I think it's a series of lots. I think there's 4 lots there that is waiting for redevelopment, as many of us know passing by. I think it puts the people that will be living there near transit and services on a developed road. It's walkable to our shops, so they become customers in a downtown core. It's walkable to transit routes. They don't necessarily need automobiles. It's a road in good condition. Wharf's in good condition in that area. It has 2 lanes each way in that part. And I think in terms of the units being offered, it may help with our missing middle with the numbers of units. And like I said, I'm encouraging them to build more missing middle units as part of the Wharf Street, as I indicated, up against Wharf Street. And it has 40 rental units that are needed in our community. We need to keep supporting rental units in our community that people will be living them close to services, because the people that tend to work in the rental units are providing services to a lot of the rest of our community, and we need people to work in our community. So I'm good with the missing middle and the number of rental units provided in this densified downtown. And I actually like the look of the building. So I'm in support. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion before us. Ready for the question? I want to make sure. So we're voting on the motion on page 94, which is items 1, 2, 3, 4A and B. Yeah. All in favor? Opposed? Council McLaughlin opposed. The motion carries. We then go to the bylaw itself, which is on page 98, bylaw number 492-34, 2023, in respect of 5700 East Porpoise Bay Road, again, as written on page 98, and this is before us for second reading. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Councilor McLaughlin is opposed. Sorry, did you want to? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna take a whack at it again. More density at Wharf Roadside. Thanks. I'm in support.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that finishes 6.4. No, one more, isn't there? Of course there is. So this is on page 99, and it is the bylaw number 58007, 2023, in respect to 5700 East Porpoise Bay Road, as written on page 99 with Schedule A attached. First, moved second, and everybody okay? Has there been no changes to the document, the Schedule A, for example, since, yeah, very good. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor McLaughlin is opposed, and the motion carries. I think now I'm allowed to say we're done with that, am I? Great, thank you. Go to item 9.1, which is the reports from our 2 representatives. You tag teamed this, we figured out something?
Start off, Councillor Inkster could fill in because I don't really have anything to report. Last week, we didn't have meetings because we were at or traveling to AVICC. And the week before is the first week of the month, and there isn't regional district meetings during that typically. So I don't know if there was anything Councillor Inkster wanted to highlight. We got a full day tomorrow, though.
We
so.
do. We do. I just wanted to let council and the community know that the financial statements that included audits in the hospital board area, so the hospital financial statements and the regional district audited statements will be coming to the board tomorrow. That should be of interest to the public and people such as our mayor, who really likes numbers. And that's tomorrow afternoon. Thanks.
I'll leave it to you, capable people. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth and I are very capable on a number of issues at that table. Thanks.
All right, and we go to the council reports. Any volunteers? Not? No. Hurt with all, okay, Counselor Toth.
I might as well go first. Don't have a lot to report from council. Attended AVICC this last weekend. I will provide an actual written report to put in an agenda for next meeting. We had a bit of a travel debacle there and a bigger travel debacle back. But maybe I'll save that story for next time, just to ensure that our audience comes back next week. So, beyond that, I attended the ceremony that the Seashell Nation had to welcome the first two homes to the Selma Park subdivision. They landed them from the barge onto land in my neighborhood, and I got wind of when they were gonna be moving them, so, 1:45 in the morning, I was down there and actually managed to get video footage of them moving these houses down the street, which was fantastic to watch. I've never been in a place to watch a house move live. It's interesting to watch them online, but it's not the same. Beyond that, I don't think I've really got much. We've been having permissive tax review meetings. We've got another one scheduled for Friday. We're moving fast through it. Director Douglas is cracking the whip on that one because he wants us to get our work done in time for us to actually consider it with the applications this year. So I think I'll just leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you. How about we go to the other end? Counselor Bell.
As mentioned by the other council members, we all attended the AVIC conference. So which stands for Association of Vancouver Island Coast Communities. There are so many acronyms out there, so I thought I should tell you what that means. Really, for me, I'm just going to summarize it. The key learning from this conference was to really hear about what other municipalities' critical issues are. And I can assure you that they are a mirror image of each other in terms of all of the issues that we're dealing with in each one of our municipalities, from affordable housing to homelessness to community safety. But more importantly, I think it's the conversations and the information shared about what people are trying to do as solutions and initiatives to resolve the critical issues with very little resources. And I think that's what really inspires me to keep pushing hard. I also want to give a shout out to the organizers, Seashell Rotary Club, and volunteers who brought us the volunteer fair on April 13th at the Seashell Seniors Activity Center. It's National Volunteer Week is being celebrated across Canada during April 14th to the 20th with a very pertinent theme, Every Moment Matters. There were 40 exhibits and approximately 175 people that attended. I want to thank you, Seashell community, for coming out to support the event. I wasn't able to be there because I was at the conference, but I've been there in the last few years. And it's a tremendous initiative. We know that that volunteers are the heart and backbone of our communities and are so critical to the programs and services that run our social, that provide our social programs. So thank you to the community came out. Thank you to the Rotary Club. And I please encourage everyone to find an opportunity to volunteer with one of these great organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Counselor Shepherd. I attended two things in the last 2 weeks. Last Wednesday, before AVICC, there was an important meeting set up by staff and the RCMP to look at engaging with the unhoused population in the downtown area. We have a substantial problem. We have many problems, but the most immediate one is rat and pest control. And so it was a meeting to tackle how that process is how we're going to engage, how we're going to try and get people who are living unhoused helping to clean up their own area, how we will help. And I heard some really inspiring ideas on how we were going to tackle that.
So it was well worth it. And I really appreciated everyone's input on it.
So who was attending?
Several RCMP officers were there, the head of our public works, Director Roberts was there hosting and leading the whole thing. Our head of building bylaw was there
And a bunch of people
and so a person from VCH and myself.
and the public.
No.
No,
Oh,
no.
So,
ah.
so that meeting was great. And then yesterday was the Airport Development Committee, a very enthusiastic group who were leading. They managed to win with our staff's help a grant for some software that's much needed for the airport. And we are putting together ideas for a master plan envisaging how the aerodrome will develop over the next 10, 15 years. Many thanks to Director Douglas and Director Dillon for their help in leading the discussion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Counts.
I'll pop forward with, in terms of volunteers, there is a book sale coming up at the Senior Center. Please come with your money. And also I'll repeat at the request of other counselors that the SCAF will be hosting a meeting on emergency preparedness, May 11th, I think. Thank you.
Very good, yes, Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, I guess we'll get information on that from Counselor Shepherd or others as to where that is. I'm assuming it's here.
No.
So
Seaside?
Seaside Center?
Senior.
Senior Center, thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Counselor Inkster, you're
Yeah,
up.
thank you. Looking forward to Counselor Shepherd on his hands and knees with the rats. Yeah. So we have been busy in the last number of days. ABICC, very similar as was mentioned, issues to us. It's, as I've mentioned at this table a number of times, many communities are dealing with crime in their downtown core. Don't think it's just a seashell thing. I hear that all the time. My gosh, homelessness everywhere. Housing is an issue, trying to find housing in all those communities. And one thing that we also were sharing over there is ferry issues. They have bigger ferries, but they need more and them, more capacity, and they have trouble with them. And Councillor Toth will talk about that soon. Ferry issues. Next meeting, I'm assuming, when he tells his story, because that's a ferry story. Just in terms of the, by the way, we came back really quick on the ferries. That was a good news story. But I just want to mention in terms of the ferry, that I should every once in a while remind people of the Tuesday, Wednesday ferry service this summer coming up. And also there will be work there at the terminal at the end of this month for a number of days, just to let everyone know that. I'm sure people are aware. And the FAC meetings are still not public because of what happened last year. And this council knows what happened. There were some concerns over safety. We keep, our chair of the local FAC keeps asking for the public meetings because we represent the public as the FAC, but we also want the public to be part of those meetings. It's part of democracy. So we keep asking for those, but there's still weak concerns we're finding after a number of months over safety, but something happened, as this council knows. So maybe we need to write a letter from this council to help the FAC. I don't know. It's just time to go back to the public to hear what they have to say on our important service. I was at the Welcoming Homes thing, and I did hear that they actually went up teed away as I thought those houses would. So it's the best way. I went to Celebration of Life that the mayor referenced, and I did speak, and I referenced I acknowledged their concerns regarding the highway system that goes through Seashelt, because it's a number of community members with concerns there. So I acknowledge their concerns. we know what those concerns are with Torito Street, a couple of issues right even in front of us here. And I spoke, and I was asked to speak, and the group of over 100 people really appreciated me adding some context to the and recognizing the individual. Just wanted to mention one other thing here. Sorry, I wrote. I guess that's it. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks. I thought I
Thank
had one
you.
more thing. Thanks. Yep.
And that was the celebration of life for Alan McPherson. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. And you
I
were
wasn't aware,
away.
I wasn't aware of that. I'm glad you were able to attend.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you. Counselor Rowe.
It's getting late. So I'm going to let you speak to the minister meetings that we
Oh,
had
all right.
at ABICC. The only thing I'm going to say is we have an upcoming event that council's going to help Councillor Shepherd and myself organize along with Director Allen, and this might be news to some of you, but it's part of our community engagement around OCP and all things planning. We're going to be playing OCP Jeopardy. And the reason I bring it up is because we'll be looking to the community associations to put together 2 teams to go up against a team of counselors. So stay tuned. We'll talk about that at the next SCAF meeting around a date. We're not going to do it on May 14th because there's going to be enough going on, but it'll be a separate event outside of that. And it's going to be a good time, and you're going to learn a thing or two. Even you. That's it.
You're right. First I've heard of it. So there. Counselor McLaughlin, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So yeah, we did go a day early to have some ministerial meetings, which was very interesting and informative, and I think quite productive as it turned out. Also attending the AVICC conference. We got an update on the housing legislation, how it's working, how it's not working. So that's moving along better than I thought it would, actually. We had some sort of presentations on cultural risk, which is the divisiveness in society these days all around, and also how to develop social cohesion, which is a good idea. Also inclusive regional government, including First Nations, which is, was quite detailed and good to know because there's a lot of insight across the province. And they did reference Seashelt and Gary Feschuk in that as a good example of leadership, which was something we have to be proud of, I think. Also, the Community Energy Association was interesting. 40% of emissions come from buildings. And the shift to electrification for transportation, it seems like another half of emissions come from transportation. So if we can deal with those 2 things, we're doing a lot. Also, a session on open and closed meetings. One of the fun parts was going to a special seafood with Donna, seafood special where we had lots of fishers prepare a delicious, the best chowder I've ever had in my life kind of thing. Wonderful. But also sitting there, we got to sit beside the mayor of Langford. And he's a real go-getter. His name's Scott Goodmanson. And I met him at the last meeting. So it's nice to see him again. And he gave us some of his documentation because they had a mayor for 30 years. So that mayor and that council kind of had Langford a certain way. So he was brought in to transform Langford. And I thought there were some similarities because Langford has about 48,000 people and has this kind of urban rural situation. So I think there's a lot we can learn from them and some of their documents for economic development and such, the way they promote their community. It's just excellent. So hopefully we can share that with the Chamber of Commerce and copy that. Really, it looks fantastic. So those are the highlights. If anybody wants to speak to me about anything in particular, that'd be great. But also another one was the idea of the circular economy, which is really being championed in Nanaimo, especially by their council. And so it's really interesting to see that innovative approach. It's in their official community plan. It's in their strategic plan. It's in some policies they have about how to operate things better and conserve energy. And they had an example of an asphalt company that's winning the award from the Chamber of Commerce. So I thought, wow, that's something. And so it was very interesting, the case studies they had, which we can all learn from. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I missed a meeting 2 weeks ago because I was enjoying the snow in Oslo. It was lovely and sunny and 7 degrees on Monday night when I arrived, and Tuesday night it decided to snow. One of the attendees was from South Africa. He'd be close to my age. He'd never been in snow. So you're kind of reminded of how big the world is and how things that we take kind of as for granted was something special for Garrick. I could go on. I will be speaking to a couple of sessions of EV associations in the next week or two about the event. Suffice to say, it was 15 countries outside of Europe, plus virtually every country in Europe represented. AVICC, you've heard a lot. I think, Council, I want to acknowledge all of us. I think we started on Wednesday, some of us, well, I think all of us had some duties on Wednesday, and every day up to today, we've had CSHALT responsibilities. So, and some of us have SCRD tomorrow. Minister meetings that Councillor Rowe referenced, and this is, I think, relevant to what we're going to get to in a few minutes. We did meet on Thursday, forgetting my days, with Minister Cullen of Walrus, Waterlands and Resource Stewardship, and Minister Murray Rankin of Indigenous Relations. I think the key things we emphasized were about ARC studies, the time, the cost, the predictability. And on the water side, we pushed firmly, I think it's fair to say, on EFN reductions, the absolute necessity of that, and of leaving the siphons, and of the importance of getting on with reclaimed water as a matter of urgency. They later, was it later that day or the next day? We met with the Minister of Transportation, and we had, I think it's fair to say, everybody was there for that, so that was great. And we had a good reception. I think I will be, I think I'd categorize it that we felt heard, and that some of the staff that attended showed that they really knew some of the issues that we're facing. And I think we will hear some small bits of good news in the coming weeks and months, perhaps. And then last, but certainly not least, over the last couple of days, Council and the senior management team have participated in a governance program aimed at giving us some tools and perspectives for working as a team in the world of local government. So that was a very good process. Okay, so that's it for me. Council, we can then move to our correspondence, and item 10.1 is the LLU commentary, and I think Mr. Councillor Toff, do you want to speak to it or make a motion?
Thank you. I mean, there's nothing here for action. It's just here for information. The LLU held a number of engagements around the province. They're listed in the document, and you know, the Sunshine Coast is now known as Secret Cove because that's where the engagement was. I found that amusing, but they did have a follow-up conference in Vancouver. Attendance at that conference was funded by CIA, the Community Action Initiative. So the District of Sechelt taxpayer didn't have to put out for that, which was really awesome. The group is holding monthly lunch sessions that any of the attendees that participated in any part of the process are invited to. I haven't looked to see yet if people that weren't at those sessions are invited yet, but I will. I reported out on the last one at the council meeting after it. The next one that's coming up is Friday, April 26th at 12 p.m. And I know that more than just Director Bax and I attended the LLU sessions from the governments of the Sunshine Coast. So I'm hoping that more of us can attend this next session. Hint, hint. Other than that, you know, the report is there. Only sort of had a light look through it. Yeah, happy to forward any questions on to the LLU. Thanks.
Okay. Any questions of Counselor Toth or commentary?
Yeah, the LLU presentation came at an interesting time because one of the local politicians asked me if, on the drug issue, if the numbers of users in the drug issue that we're dealing with, toxic drug issue, is increasing. And what they indicated to me, and I forwarded to the people asking the questions, is what they're finding is it's the toxicity of the drugs that's the issue, not necessarily the large growth in the numbers of users. So, and I think people intuitively know that, but that's what they're finding with their research, that it's the basically toxicity, bad drugs that's out there that's causing the deaths and all the problems. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take that as presented, and we'll look at then item 10.2, which is request for support from us for attracting doctors. I don't think any of us are in support of that, are we? Checking if anybody's listening. Cal, do you want to?
I don't know anything about it. I must have missed the email when it came through, but when they say that they're looking for support, are they looking for like a letter from the mayor welcoming people to our community? Or are they looking for funding? Thank you.
Counselor Rowe.
No, I would say nobody knows. Many moons ago, I went to a community partnership meeting with the division. And I think it's kind of like a welcome wagon deal from local governments, but I don't know if it's like swag or if they're looking for actual money to support the program. So I would make a motion that we ask staff to read back and sort of define exactly what it is they're looking for. And if it's something more than swag, then bring it back to us. I don't know how you want to write that. We don't really know. Yeah.
Okay.
There is a very active, I will say, with the division, a very active recruitment team that is sort of new to them. So I think they're making some traction. We're getting some more doctors that are coming to do a return of service, and this is where they stay for 2 or 3 years, depending on what the agreement is, and then they leave. And then there's always this public outcry that physicians are leaving. But what people don't understand is that was always the plan. They probably have family elsewhere. They probably, they were never coming to stay, but we'll take them for 2 or 3 years. The more of those that we can get, the better. And so the divisions really, physicians as a whole have undergone a change. Nobody wants to be a family physician working in an office anymore. The new doctors of today, they want work-life balance. They don't want to commit to one thing. They want to do a bit of emergency medicine, a bit of this, a bit of that. So they're really trying to be malleable to, and so is the provincial government with some of the funding agreements that they are coming out with. So I guess the bottom line at this late hour is that there's hope. There's a team, they're being creative, and this is an example of something like that. So.
We'll get some further information on what they're looking for. I think it probably is more the letters from the mayor or other things to go in the welcome package. But I know I've taken this on personally as every doctor I've had. What do I do to keep them?
Yeah, and I would say if you don't have a family physician, make sure you're registered with the health registry, because that is how unattached patients will become attached. And I could go on about the primary care network, but it's.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so that was a motion, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, so,
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Sure, okay, please.
So what I heard, please feel free to correct or modify this as you wish, that staff work with the Sunshine Coast Divisions of Family Practice Recruitment Team to provide support for the physician welcome package for the recruitment and retention campaign, and that a recommendation come forward to council if funding is requested.
Okay, and that was seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. So we then go to item 10.3, which is a string of emails from and to Mr. Mitcher and some of, I think some of the folks who are here tonight. Thank you for your patience in staying. I guess, council, if reading this, you got comments or you want to, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got comments and then we can have a discussion, but I asked for this correspondence to be on the agenda because there's a number of items that I think need to be addressed in here. First and foremost, this is not what I would consider to be a respectful way to engage with staff or members of the District of Sechelt Council. I've been attacked, I've been threatened, and I've had demands for my resignation over the course of this term so far, and we're only 18 months in. While I'm not going anywhere, behaviors like these are unacceptable towards another human being, and especially more so towards our staff and the regional district staff, who are doing the jobs that they're trained and qualified to do, based on direction from boards and councils. In this correspondence, my political leanings are theorized about because I can't answer the letter writer's question to their satisfaction. It doesn't matter if I lean NDP, Conservative, or Rhino Party. You get more work done with senior levels of government by engaging in a positive manner. There's no need to tear anyone down to try and validate a viewpoint. I mentioned at a public meeting a number of times last term that letter writing campaigns and public pressure may become necessary to get the Church Road wellfield licensed. At the end of the day, I don't really care who sits in the legislature. In terms of information, the next water summit has had to be postponed and rescheduled on 2 separate occasions now. I was hoping that we would have received publicly distributable information that would speak to many of the questions that have been raised in the correspondence as part of that summit. Are all of the answers known? No. Will some of the questions remain unanswered indefinitely? Quite possibly. I don't see that it's the letter writer or anyone else's business where things like the zone meters might be installed for the Sechelt Nation. We're not members of the nation, and we haven't been hired to read those meters. Our staff live here too. They're affected by the same shortages, the same regulations, and the same frustrations that every other member of this community are. However, staff across all governments are working more closely together than ever before, and this work is occurring with an acute sense of urgency. SCRD, District of Sechelt, Sechelt Nation, and even provincial staff are all at the table working on solutions and tools to ensure that water keeps flowing this summer. Even the District of Sechelt, who's not the purveyor of water, has been invited to participate in the technical working groups. That group includes representatives from the province, the Sechelt, SCRD, District of Sechelt, and Town of Gibsons. It's a great opportunity that our team is being involved and remaining involved so that they can be strong advocates for projects when advocacy becomes necessary. The province is well aware that even though Church Road is online at full capacity, 4.6 million liters per day, we're going to probably need a little more. EFN management and ongoing siphon use are going to be the only management tools available to provide additional water in 2024. Everyone is well aware of this and is working towards making sure that the science is solid, concerns are identified, and a plan for implementation and monitoring can be supported that ensures the health of our community and also the creek. Just because there isn't a press release doesn't mean this work isn't getting done. The fact that we haven't had our taps run dry at any point, including in 2022, is a huge testament to the fact that our water staff are actually very good at their jobs. When there are announcements to be made, they will be made. At that point, we can all celebrate the work that has been done together to ensure that water keeps flowing. That's all I have to say on the issue. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Toth. Counselor Bell?
Yeah,
I
thank
see
you.
No, your mic's on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yes, I would also like to say that from the correspondence that, I won't speak for the other members of the council team, but I will speak for myself. With respect to the comment about councillors ducking your questions, it's not because I don't care about the water issue. If I don't care about this critical issue, then I don't deserve to be in this seat. I did not respond because I feel Councillor Toth, as Vice Chair of the SCRD Board of Directors, did a very solid job of answering your questions to the best of his ability with the information he has at this time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments? Counselor Shepherd?
I don't have that formal response. I didn't respond to the letter and the stream of letters over the next 3 weeks. Because first of all, the letter writer got a response from Councillor Toth, who's the person on council probably closest to the issue. So I don't think the letter writer needs 7 councillors sort of jumping into this. I also note in part of the correspondence where Councillor Toth actually contacts the CAO of the region and says, hey, do you want to speak directly to the CAO of the region, who's a person in the heart of all of these negotiations with the province, with the Shishal, obviously the SCRD, and the letter writer says no. So I guess after that, I just thought, I'm really torn. I don't know what the letter writer and this group are not satisfied with anything that's being said. At the same time, I'm kind of torn that it's such an important issue. Should the district have a formal position on it? And I'm sort of going over that in my head. I don't know the value of it because, and here's a good example, specific example. The last major decision that the SCRD took on water was the Langdale well. So it was, they went through the whole practice of costing it out, and then it came to the board, are we going to pursue this or not? So is there value to us, the district, somehow directing our 2 representatives to take a position on that? I actually have great trust in Councillor Toth and Councillor Inkster. And I know that they're going to make a good decision on those issues. So we're tracking it. You know, the most important process here is the one that's being developed by the Shishal, which is bringing all of the informed decision-making governments into under one roof. That's where we can feed questions. That's where we debate things. It's not all happening at once. It's happening over time. So I'm just wondering about the value of having these formal positions on the district side. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
The formal position, meaning we would discuss something and have a resolution here. Is it?
Yeah, I think that's my point. Should we have,
Right.
knowing that the Langdale well issue is coming before council, it's costed out, do they proceed or not? Should we have had a debate here and to direct our 2, I don't know, would we come up with any different result?
Right. Okay, no, thank you. That's interesting discussion. We have tried it in the past and deferred to the SCRD, but yeah, Councillor Rowe.
I'm a member of the New Democratic Party. I'm just going to put that out there so that Councillor Toth doesn't feel alone. I couldn't do the Rhino Party. First of all, I think to insinuate that any of us don't have water front and center in our minds is an insult. I echo pretty much everything that Councillor Shepherd has said. I will point out, though, that I do believe that the oath of office for the regional district is for the directors to represent the needs of the region as opposed to the needs of Sechelt. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, it's to represent not only the area we serve,
That's
to
right.
represent
It is,
the region
it
as
is
a
a
whole.
region. So that's sort of where my I have some question about having a resolution that directs them how to vote. Anyways, that's another topic. But I think, one of the big threads through AVICC and UBCM for the years past is around First Nations and reconciliation, and that is the most important work that we are doing on this topic is at those water summits. And I would also say that I think staff are working collaboratively, more at a different level of collaboration that is being made possible by having these water summits. And it's so hard to sit at this table day after day and at this computer day after day for almost 6 years and see people busting their asses and then opening an email that says, you're not doing anything, essentially. And that's a general statement, not necessarily with respect to this thread. And, I'm going to leave it at that. There's going to be quite a few opportunities October 2026 as well. And this is really rewarding work. And it's really tough sometimes because most of us like to be appreciated and not ridiculed. Human nature.
Okay, thanks. You're okay? I'm just looking to, if anybody else
I
wants
guess I
to
can-
respond.
For my part, I really like the collaboration that we have with the water summits. We need it on many levels. Nobody really cares what jurisdiction they live in. They want to know their government is taking care of them and is going to provide water for them. And water is not a service, it's a right. And it is not something we can just start saying, oh, I have other ideas about how to get it. We have to do it together. We live in a watershed together, even with wells, it's like a big milkshake. If you stick too many straws in it, you're going to run out of milkshake pretty fast. And there's only so much. So that's the way I could kind of humorously look at it. But I really appreciate all the work that is done by our RD representatives and the RD staff, especially water. They've put aside a lot of the things they want to do to focus on water. And it's just very admirable. But it is difficult. We don't really have absolute surety. We're going to have enough water this summer, but we're going to do everything we can to have the public support us and to move ahead carefully. We live in, I don't want a dastardly situation with climate change. This is the problem. We're in a rainforest in the winter and we're in a desert in the summer. And that's just the way it is. So I think it's a matter of managing and sharing and caring and being considerate to each other, because that's how you get through a crisis. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, from me, I did reply, as council knows, to the thread, but I think where we're at is of a lack of communication and a fear that comes out of not knowing what's going on. And I actually share some of that. I think the last water summit, I stand to be corrected, but it was late November. So, there's been a lot of technical work, but we do need to encourage and get more input. And I'd even like to suggest, if council's so inclined, that we ask the SCRD technical people to come and talk to us in an open meeting. I think we're not giving enough information. I think what we've read in these emails is born out of uncertainty, born out of fear. And we can hopefully deal with that with the people that we have working on all these different factors. I'd also like to know much, much more, speaking both as a resident and as the mayor, what are the contingencies? You know, you mentioned November of 2022 and we came real close. There was talk then about using Trout Lake and going on a boil water advisory. Are we able to do that? Is that still in place? And I think the community would benefit from hearing what other plans are in place in the worst case scenarios. You know, I've heard people ask, or I've had people ask me about, well, why don't we have desalination? Well, I'm no expert on desalination, but what are our backups? And that's my, I think the lack of information on this is at the root of the frustrations that have been expressed to us. So that's a very specific thing. I'd love to hear more. Speaking again as a member of council, I don't really know where we're at with the two reservoirs that the Shell are proposing. And as I say, I don't really know what our contingencies are if we don't get Mother Nature being kind to us by raining in September and October and November. So I would like to encourage both the SCRD to do more about communicating and also invite some of the folks to come and see us at a meeting very soon. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I do have, I did make sure that I brought the news release that the regional district put out the other day on a number, spoke to a number of issues.
Snowpack.
Mostly snowpack, but talking about stage one. Snowpack, by the way, is province-wide. Once again, if people want to blame the regional district for not getting ready for it, other areas are not knowing what to do with it. The difference of 2022 and now is that the Church Road well field is operational, and as Councillor Toth mentions, will be 4.5 million liters additional per day into the Chapman system during the summer. I did look through the number of mentions at council over the last, since the beginning of our term on water, to see who did the numbers, most mentions on water, and looked at it, and it goes, Councillor Toth and myself were at the top of the most mentions on water, although people don't think we talk about it enough. Don't know what we're saying if we're not talking about a number of the parts of the issue every time we mention it. Other than we had a glass of water that day, I doubt that's what it is. About the projects at the regional district. And then it goes to the Mayor Henderson to speak on water, and then individual council members. So we've been talking a lot about it. It's in our minutes if people want to look. So we can ask them to come, the regional district come and speak to us, much like they do on the budget. Why not? If we can set that up for them to come and update our community, although there's a number of people that are interested in water that go to those meetings at the regional district as well. So once again, it's what kind of information do you want exactly? So if we do that, let's make sure we have a respectful meeting, because people don't want to be out. Some people think that that's the way to get information, is to yell at people. It's not actually. It's going to end up like the FAC on ferries, where they don't want to come anymore because they fear for their safety. Whether people think that they're making them uncomfortable or not, that's how they feel, because that's how people feel. That's why the FAC is not coming to talk about ferries, which is when I ran, that was my second issue other than water, was ferries. And now people got mad at the people that wanted to come and talk to us about ferry plans, and now they're not coming to speak to us anymore. I can't make them come because that's an additional threat, making people come because they're feeling threatened. So I think we just need to have a continuous respectful dialogue on water. And I also wanted to ask the mayor, if you could speak to one of the ministerial meetings where you referenced the water discussion. You've talked to us about it. It's no reason why you can't tell the public that there, how it was, they weren't clear on EFN as an example, and you weren't getting any of the information you wanted. So if you could speak to that, that would be cool. You mean maybe a year ago No, it was a few days ago.
They were clear about the EFN.
Yeah, what were they?
knew what EFN stood. for
Yeah.
very well.
Okay, yeah, and,
Didn't make-
and,
They were very clear about what the EFN is,
yes,
and that's different than perhaps a year ago when I met them.
yes. I know that.
So I'm not sure where you're going.
Well, they weren't clear about how we could, what the decision would be made on the FN decision. As you indicated, they
Yes,
were
it-
very vague. And,
Yes,
that's what the
they were
regional district-
non-committal at the ministers, so.
And that's what the regional district is dealing with, just what you dealt with, so.
Right,
Yeah.
well, we were there in support. The SCRD had a meeting 2 days ahead.
Yeah.
So we came in coincidentally, I believe.
Yeah.
To say, hey, go EFN, go siphons, go.
Exactly,
reclaim,
but what was
go
their
anything.
response to you?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll say asked and answered.
Yeah.
I think that's a okay, any other comments, council? Nope. Okay. Thank you for this. As everybody knows, we'll have questions after the meeting. So if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? We are adjourned. Well.